Hello everyone, I am Sean. In the last lesson, I assigned you the homework of action practice for the first time. I hope more and more students will take practical actions to change themselves. There is a female student in my offline lesson left a deep impression on me. In her comment, she talked about a time when she had a conflict with a librarian at the library due to a misunderstanding which escalated into intense emotions. This story reminded me of an incident this week when I was driving and got fined by a traffic police for crossing a solid yellow line while making a U-turn. Here's what happened. I was in the left turn lane and followed the instructions of the traffic lights to make a U-turn. However, I accidentally crossed the solid yellow line while making the turn. Many cars in front and behind me made the same mistake, but only some of us were caught by the police. The people who were caught started arguing and getting into a heated debate with the police, believing that it was unnecessary to make a big deal out of accidentally crossing a line and even complaining about the situation. Why were they only catching us? Why not others? They argued with a strong sense of aggression. But when I got out of the car, I took a completely different approach. I didn't intend to solve the problem from my own perspective because I understood the position of the police. Their job is to enforce the rules. My way of communicating with the police was to first acknowledge my mistake and show understanding and agreement towards them. I said, I can imagine that dealing with drivers like us must be quite frustrating for you. You have to punish us for our own good, and that will definitely help us remember the rules. Then I started asking about other things to be aware of when making a U-turn. I said that I would learn from this experience and not cause trouble for the police next time. While the police explained the rules to me, I took the opportunity to express my admiration and understanding for their work. I said, you all have a tough job. It must be very hard. I've been standing here for just a little while and I'm already freezing. The wind is so strong today and you have to stand at this windy spot on duty. It must be really cold. When a person feels understood, acknowledged, and respected, they tend to be more open. In handling this situation, neither side erupted with emotions and the outcome was something both sides could accept and agree with. It can be considered an ideal result. The reason why I was able to face this sudden situation calmly after getting off the car. First, I don't cling to right and wrong or fairness. I saw the car that wasn't caught speeding away. If I were to pursue fairness, I would inevitably feel resentful towards the police. However, humans are not robots and I can also be careless at times, just as the police can be negligent. When the police are educating me and they don't have the time to catch others. This situation objectively exists and is normal. He is not targeted at me. If I demand absolute fairness, the traffic police would have to have the ability to catch others while dealing with me. Is that a reasonable request? Of course not. Secondly, just because I made a mistake and was penalized by the police doesn't mean I am negating myself. I don't feel like a criminal or ashamed. I am a human and people make mistakes. When faced with a mistake, it's important to acknowledge it and make timely corrections. I shouldn't think that I am a terrible person just because of one wrongdoing. Thirdly, I don't fear or resist the outcome. Even if I receive penalty or fines, what does it matter? I just must face the consequences. I won't dwell on having to pay fines or think about how unlucky I am or how much time I'll waste dealing with penalty. The worst outcome would simply be having to take a longer route, spend a little more time, and pay a little more money. I don't live in fear of the outcome, and I don't believe there is any consequence that I cannot bear. In fact, from the message of that diligent girl, I can sense that she is a serious and meticulous person. The structure of her message perfectly matches the requirements of my assignment. This kind of student who strictly follows instructions often has a tendency towards absoluteness in terms of fairness, right and wrong, and perfection. As a result, it can lead to black and white judgments. For example, she thinks it is unreasonable and even deceitful for the librarian to ask her to write her name without telling her the reason. She believes that being asked to explain to the library director is like being judged guilty. She thinks that if she is recorded for making a mistake, it will be a stain on her reputation. And afterwards, she realizes that her emotional reaction at the time was unpleasant. Within this series of thoughts, there exists absoluteness, extreme negativity, black and white thinking, and various cognitive biases. It is precisely because of these cognitive biases that she had an outburst of uncontrollable emotions over a small matter. Based on my analysis of this girl's assignment mentioned above, everyone can reflect on the cognitive biases behind their own emotional reactions. For example, another student said that when his child fell on the muddy ground and he will get angry, he realized that in his cognition, falling was considered a mistake, which was a cognitive bias that the child shouldn't make mistakes. In addition to this cognitive bias, thinking that the pants are dirty and I have to wash them. I am tired, this is an exaggerated fear of the outcome, and it is also one of the reasons for negative emotions. Exaggeration is also a cognitive bias. People who generally feel that life is exhausting have this characteristic. It is not that real life makes us tired, but it is our perception that makes us feel tired. If the clothes are dirty, just wash them. It won't really be exhausting, but we exaggerate the outcome, naturally causing a lot of mental stress. The first module of our mind reading course is about self. The development of self is the main theme throughout our first module. If we don't understand ourselves, our feelings of inferiority or emotional instability are all results of our immature self-development. Through the first module, everyone should be able to feel that being dissatisfied with oneself is a very common situation. But the even more common situation is that we see our own problems but generally feel powerless to solve them, not knowing what to do with ourselves. Just like thinking that knowing oneself is difficult because of a lack of methods, many people also think that changing oneself is difficult because of a lack of methods. But as the saying goes, if the problem is wrong, the solution will be incorrect. Many times, it's not that we don't have methods, but because we are waiting for a magic solution that can instantly make us better. However, the path to self-reconstruction is a gradual process. To embark on and persist in the path of self-reconstruction, the first issue we need to address is the problem of powerlessness. Powerlessness is not only a feeling we have about changing ourselves, but also a common state that many people experience in various aspects of life and work due to stress. Today, in this lesson, we will discuss the root causes of powerlessness and 2 methods to reduce it in life. To embark on and persist in the path of self-reconstruction, the first issue we need to address is the problem of powerlessness. Powerlessness is not only a feeling we have about changing ourselves, but also a common state that many people experience in various aspects of life and work due to stress. Today, in this lesson, we will discuss the root causes of powerlessness and 2 methods to reduce it in life. Actually, everyone will encounter setbacks or negative events, but even when facing setbacks, why do some people not become learned helplessness and still maintain their energy? This is related to one of the causes of learned helplessness, which is related to cognitive style. Every day, we encounter some good things, some bad things, and some ambiguous things. What things will you think about today? What things will you ignore? The happiest people always focus on positive information, ignore negative information, and try to see ambiguous information as positive information. People with this cognitive style can be said to have rose-colored glasses, while those with a negative cognitive style can be said to have blue-colored glasses. They pay attention to negative information, ignore positive information, and interpret ambiguous information in the worst possible way. Having a negative cognitive style, which means seeing the world with blue-colored glasses, people tend to attribute problems to factors related to themselves, to universal causes, and to always have the worst expectations for outcomes. They believe that all the problems reflect their own flaws and believe that these flaws are difficult to change in the future. When we see the world with blue-colored glasses, we also tend to evaluate our own performance with the same negative perspective and often get trapped in our own mistakes. For example, if a teacher tells a student with a blue-colored glasses that they did well on 5 out of 6 quiz questions, but slightly worse on 1 question, this student is likely to focus on the question they answered slightly worse and consider their performance to be terrible. To eliminate the feeling of powerlessness in life and shape ourselves, we need to use the 4-step loop method to change our cognitive style and transform from someone who holds blue glasses to someone who holds rose-colored glasses. Let's take an example of a mother who experiences a lot of psychological pressure from raising a child and see how she can adjust herself. Everyone can use this step to adjust their cognitive style, and it can also be applied to many other things. The first step is to learn to be aware of your subconscious negative cognitive thoughts. These thoughts come rushing out when you feel the worst, and they come on so strong that you don't have time to react or resist. It's also difficult to notice them. For example, as a mother, sometimes you need to raise your voice to get your child to go to school obediently. After you're shouting, you feel like you are a terrible mother. So, first, you need to identify one thing. After raising your voice, you subconsciously believe that you are a terrible mother. This thought itself is what makes you feel very frustrated and miserable, and it can even make your mood low throughout the day. The second step is to become aware of this subconscious thought and immediately refute this irrational thought with opposing evidence. For example, you can remind yourself repeatedly that after the children come back from school, you will play soccer with them, guide their homework, discuss their problems in a way they prefer. You still have many aspects in which you are doing great and have great moments with your children. You need to quickly gather evidence of this kind to refute the thought that you are a terrible mother. The third step is to change the way of interpretation, which is called resetting. For example, perhaps you are just in a bad mood right after waking up in the morning, so you lack patience and are not suitable for dealing with your child in the morning. But in the afternoon and evening, your state will be much better. In this case, you should tell yourself that you just couldn't communicate well with your child in the morning, not that you are a terrible mother or unsuitable to be a mother, so you don't deserve to live in this world. Soon, you will realize that the previous thought is illogical. You are just not suitable for handling children in the morning. Why should that make you undeserving to live in this world? Step 4. On a deeper level, you need to learn to question the core erroneous assumptions that give rise to your feelings of powerlessness. These assumptions are holding you back. For example, I can't live without love. I am a failure because I can't be perfect. I am a failure because not everyone likes me. Every problem has a perfect solution and I have to find it. I can't make mistakes, and if I do, I am a bad person. How will others perceive me if I make this mistake? They will surely think poorly of me. These assumptive cognitions are typical cognitive biases characterized by extreme and absolute thinking, and they are extremely detrimental. To eliminate the feeling of powerlessness, besides reconstructing cognitive style, another important method is to continually gain experiences of success. In the introduction to our mind reading course, there is a point that I want to lead the students through cognitive reconstruction and the rebuilding of action power using psychological techniques. When many people decided to take my offline course, they were filled with self-doubt and a sense of powerlessness, such as worrying about not having enough time and possibly not being able to persist, or worrying about not having any foundation and whether they could keep up, or worrying about being over 40 years old and having a memory that is not as good as younger people's, fearing that they won't be able to remember so much. In these voices, all I hear is a generalization of past experiences of failure, a negative cognition. Many people are controlled by this sense of powerlessness, preventing them from taking a step forward each time. And because they are afraid to take a step forward each time, it further deepens the feeling of failure. A series of mind-reading courses is a vehicle for change. If you continuously learn through the course every day, updating your cognition, and if you persist in completing the assignments I assign after lesson, you will also have a renewed self by the end of our mind-reading course. We are always searching for various methods because methods seem to make us feel like many changes can happen immediately. But how many methods end up gathering dust after you know about them? And how many courses have you purchased only to give up after listening to a few lessons and start searching for something new? Learning without action and practice will not make us more powerful. Power definitely comes from the support of successful experiences, and any successful experience combined with a change in cognitive style will help us gradually rebuild ourselves. After today's lesson, I hope you can do a systematic review and reflection on the course starting from our first lesson. Each time you listen to my course on mind reading, you will have new moments of enlightenment. In order to fully understand the content I teach, you need to think, practice, and gain experience repeatedly. The joy of gradually understanding, from a vague glimmer to a complete clarity, can only be obtained through thinking and taking action. I hope that in this week's comments, you can tell me which topics have expanded your cognition in the past 6 lessons and what methods you have tried and what experiences you have gained. Being loved is the most important human need. This need starts in childhood and follows us into adulthood, leading us into love and marriage. Each person has a love box waiting to be filled, which determines how we choose intimate partners and how we interact with them. Love and intimacy are different from ordinary interpersonal relationships because all the perfect disguises we put on in front of others don't work in intimate relationships. You may be tolerant of others but extremely irritable with your loved one. You may be accommodating to others but extremely critical of your loved one. You may keep a distance from others but closely follow your loved one. These seemingly opposite behaviors are actually closely related because all the unsatisfied desires in our ordinary interpersonal relationships may manifest themselves in love and intimacy as demanding expectations. Our relationships with our partners, children, and parents, who are the closest to us, are important areas for our personal growth. Starting from the next module, our course on mind reading will teach you how to grow in intimate relationships. Please continue to follow my course. See you in the next module.